This is Talking Devils from talkingthedevils.co.uk, your favourite Manchester United podcast in a new format. I'm your host, Wayne Barton, author and producer of Manchester United books and a couple of films as well. Joined by Manchester United legend Paul Parker, winner of every domestic trophy with the club, here for this new platform for the new season. So if you're watching live on YouTube, feel free to get your questions in. If I work out how to get to them, I'll make sure that we ask them as well to Paul. First of all, Paul, how are you doing? You all right?
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you very much, Wayne.
Have a good summer?
Well, what we've had of it, I mean, it's just been nice just to have that, been able to do that little bit more as it's gone on. We've just taken an extra step forward and it's getting better and better.
Yeah, good stuff. Did you like the heat wave last week?
I was out in the heat wave. I was sitting there on lakes fishing all last week and 2 days the previous week, and even the top of my head it's still starting to peel now, which isn't good, especially being at my height. People can look down on it.
I stayed indoors because I don't like the heat outside, but it was worse inside. I don't know. I should have probably gone outside and got some colour on, especially for the occasion. But no, pasty white as always. So yeah, please like and subscribe to the channel. We do have a lot of exciting content coming up, new shows with former players, interviews and series and everything like that. And we've got an interview with Rafael da Silva already on the channel. And last week we did the first show with former United attacker Phil Marsh. Those shows Phil's going to be on weekly. Yeah, but I guess the first place to start is the European Championships, Paul. England got to the final, bit of a journey to get there. Seemed to unite the country more than any tournament since 96, 98, really. What did you make of England's performances?
I thought, given that the fact of we made it easy on ourselves by the path we took, I think we done well. But I look at it and I say that sometimes it's better to play the big sides, as what Italy done. They had their games against Belgium and their game against Spain, so they were pushed to the limits in their games. We never really got pushed to test ourselves. We, in a certain way, we just about got over the line in the majority of the games. The only game where we really had to go and do something because the team in front of us weren't up to it was Ukraine. And then you go and score 4 goals, and you expected to do well against those sides, and you expect to beat them well. If the gulf is that big as everyone expects, go and beat them well. And after that game, I think everyone seriously believed that England were going to go all the way and we're going to win it. But the team, as I've said so many times already since this tournament finished, the tournament that was the best team on the first day, on the last day they were still the best team. I don't think the team has won a tournament in the manner that Italy have for a long, long time, because they didn't really get through anything just by sheer luck or anything. They've worked hard and they got what they deserved from every game they played in.
Yeah, they were dominant. From a United perspective, there are a couple of good performances in there. Luke Shaw and Harry Maguire in the England team. Maguire doing well after he came back from suspension. You had a lot of people sort of saying, "Oh, he's not going to." Was that suspension or injury? But he was out for the first couple of games. Came back in, and everyone's saying, "Oh, I don't think we're going to see the difference." But he actually did make a bit of a difference to that back line. And then Luke Shaw, obviously, everyone saw the sort of form that he's been in for the second half of the season with United. Well, what did you make of the United sort of contribution to England's?
Well, I mean, we have to say Luke Shaw done well, because once he got in there, he never got taken out. And I thought that Chilwell might have got a run. He didn't get a run, so he stayed in. Harry Maguire, with injuries or whatever, come in, and he done well. But we have to say as well that England defensively didn't really get tested, and the only time they got tested is really the crucial time was in the final. And we got found wanting, to be perfectly honest, as a team, not just defensively. It was about a team really. And just prior to the Italy game, Gareth Southgate, they're virtually going to build statues and make him England's greatest manager. Push aside Sir Ralph Ramsey and bringing Gareth Southgate. But that's today's world, isn't it? It's only 5-minute memory spans at the moment. But Man United boys done well, done themselves justice, maybe even surpassed that, and people will look at them differently. But it's going to make an interesting start to the season, really, because I think everyone's going to go, and because of what's gone on the previous season and a half, I think people are just looking to get through the doors and just really enjoy themselves.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the transfers, the players who've come in over the summer. Jadon Sancho is obviously the headline one, been after him for a year. Good for him and for us that he had a bit of a rest in the European Championships. What do you make of that? We've talked about him obviously a few times in the past, over the summer and obviously last summer as well, because that was a major headline transfer. But he's come for a fee that was a lot less than what Dortmund were after last summer. Obviously, you should think long term he's going to be on the right hand side, even if he might be needed on the left for a bit with Rashford's injury. But he should probably be on the right hand side. And he obviously a player that Solskjaer wants. We've seen in the past. I know people are still undivided with Wan-Bissaka. Undecided about Wan-Bissaka, but by and large, Ollie's got his signings right, so that's a good indication that Sancho's going to be the right person for that right hand side, isn't it? What do you make of the signing?
I'm still a little bit not sure about that one, to be honest. Is he going to play on the right hand side? Because I think when I look at the back end of the season, I'd look at players who stood out when it mattered in the final, in that final third of the season, maybe slightly less. I would look at Cavani, of course. We're talking about the top end, the business end of the pitch. And I'd look at Greenwood. I thought Greenwood was brilliant in the back end of the season. He just seemed to have got his head around what had happened when he was away, when he's on
Yeah.
international duty. That situation with him and Foden. Well, Foden just got straight out. I thought it took Mason a long, long while to get over it, and the press weren't letting him go, and I don't think they helped his cause. But he got over it, and he was. He was. You look at it. Him and Cavani were the two most important players at the back end of the season for making and for scoring goals and for getting people, in a typical Manchester United way, they want players to get you off your seat. And those two were doing that. So I think myself, Greenwood has to start the season unless he goes and does something silly during pre-season. And after seeing it the weekend, I would turn around and say he has to start the season. But so everyone's talking about the right-hand side of Sancho going out. Greenwood is always better when he comes inside. He likes to step inside. He can go outside on his left side. I'm still not going to say his best side. So I'm not sure what is his best side, to be perfectly honest. I think a lot of people are in that way. But for me, the person who should be worried is Marcus Rashford. He should be worried. If he thinks he's a shoo-in, then there's something that he knows that no one else out there knows. Because if you're going by current form, he shouldn't be starting the season. And we keep hearing he's got this injury, he's got that injury. He's injured or he's not. In today's football, he can sit out and get it sorted. There's no pressuring into players in what there was in my time and just after my time when you were playing, because you had to get those other kind of bonuses in, and that meant being on the park. Just like me, many others played carrying an injury because it made up their wages. So now there's not that big push now to worry, get games behind you. If you're only playing 20 games a season, 25, you're deemed an injury prone. So it'd be interesting if he starts the season and doesn't have this, what is rumoured shoulder injury sort of. If you've got a shoulder problem, you get it done with because it affects your game, because you don't really want to sprint too hard because you might pull it. You don't really want to get in shoulder to shoulder. You don't want to put yourself in a position of getting nudged or anything because you're worried about your shoulder slipping out the joint. So if that's there, you've got to get it done. So and then if you take that all away, the injuries, and you look at form, he shouldn't have played as many games as what he did last season, to be perfectly honest. Should never have done. If Mason Greenwood had been fit, declared himself fit to the England squad, who was Gareth Southgate going to leave out? Was it a Greenwood or was it a Rashford? I really don't know. He pulled out quite early before the decisions were made. So it's just an interesting one, and that's my opinion, to be honest. And on quite a few occasions over the previous season, I talked about Marcus Rashford, and people are having a go at me about it. And were they having a go at me because they felt I was wrong about my decision on him regarding football, or were they saying I was wrong because, as the saying goes now, Marcus Rashford feeds kids? Great that he's doing that, but I'm judging him as a footballer, and his form wasn't good enough to be playing or played so many games.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. The other thing with Rashford as well, obviously, I'm with you. I think he should have the surgery as soon as he needs it, and take the time to recover. I understand all that. I just think that the rumor is that the delay of the surgery is going to be because he's worried about how United are going to adapt without him. He's worried about his place. But I would
Well,
say,
I'll tell you how they'll adapt. I'll tell you how they adapt, Wayne. They adapt is any team who have got a squad and he's not playing. It's
exactly.
as
That's
simple
what
as
I'm
that.
saying. Like he's going to have that problem when he's fit. Do you know? You should have that problem at United, right? That's the problem that you should have always there. Mike Pieri asks about the contract extension to Ole, and we will get to that in a moment, Mike. Just going to go through the players first of all. Sancho was obviously the signing that we've talked about. Let's talk about the one that's very rumoured at the moment. Every day there's a new update saying it's close, it's close, it's closer. Rafael Varane, a player that United wanted when he was at Lens a few years back. Fergie wanted him apparently, and he chose to go to Real Madrid. He's had a very good time there, won some Champions League medals. Apparently wants a new challenge. We can't really tell at the moment if that's a new challenge is getting another £50,000 from Real Madrid, or whether it's coming to England to sort of test himself in the Premier League. But it seems, to all intents and purposes, be the next transfer that's going to be through the door. What do you make of this one? I mean, a lot of people undecided on this. I mean, I look at it from the conversations that we've had over the previous year, and do you know what? There might be better centre backs than Rafael Varane around, but he's obviously an upgrade on Lindelof. And again, we're looking at Ollie's choice. We're looking at his choice and saying this is the man that he wants to partner Harry Maguire. It looks like they're trying to strike a bargain price because he's out of contract next year. What do you make to the speculation about Varane?
Again, I mean, I don't sit and watch him week in, week out. Because I don't think any player plays in Europe. When I hear about players screaming and shouting, I think, so how many games you seen them play? All people really do is see montages, or they see him in tournaments, such or watching in Champions League. I've always been a bit wary of him because I don't know how much of an upgrade he is going to be on Lindelof because he's not physical. I always keep seeing him chasing back and being knocked around a bit. He makes a lot of easy mistakes, and I'm not really sure. I really want to come out and say that will make a difference. I think he has been led incredibly by Ramos.
Yeah.
Ramos, I should say, has controlled him in a good way. Took him under his wing, and he has just led him along, shouted, screamed, pulled him in different positions. And I'm hoping I'm totally wrong with that because that's the last thing that I think Manchester United want to go and see is a more expensive version of Lindelof, someone who's going to be a bit tentative, someone who's going to get up against somebody and be bullied, as Lindelof did on many occasions. I think Ollie likes Lindelof. It's as simple as that. He really likes him because so many people have come in and done well that he always went back to him, always kept playing him and playing him. So for Varane to come in and take over, Ollie must to go and get and spend that money. He must be saying, right, he believes he's a lot better. This is one that I need to see it. I just need to see, and it's another position where he has to hit the ground running. He can't come in and need time to get going because I don't think the fans are going to push for that. The fans would sooner carried on and get a little bit of more continuity with Lindelof and Maguire together, rather than bringing somebody who's not going to hit the ground running. Wayne.
Yeah, well, talk to me about that, the continuity aspect of it, because we did talk about Lindelof a lot last season, but perhaps the fact that Varane's quite durable. I said durable. I share your concern about impossibly getting bullied in the same way that that Lindelof has been. But then you look at the fact that Maguire, if you're looking at from Ollie's point of view, he's looking and saying, well, Maguire led Lindelof. Maguire's that kind of player that could lead in the same way that Ramos does. I'm not saying that Maguire's the same kind of leader as Ramos, but in what he brings to the United backline, it could well be. And so he might see that Varane's a player who could be led. And I just look at it and think, he's definitely an upgrade on Lindelof from what I've seen. But then I sort of when I listen to you talk, I'm thinking, no, do you know what? Probably if I rewind a few years and I remember when Lindelof was brought in, I'm sure people can remember the highlights of him scoring free kicks from 30 yards. Do you know what I mean? When he played for Benfica and everyone was talking, he had the reputation of the Iceman. Do you know what I mean? This is when we signed Lindelof, those kind of things were being said. But do you think that, he's looked at a player like Varane, the fact that, he's got a good record of being fit for matches, that he thinks he can play them together and they'll just be that number two, the two in the back line that are always going to be there?
Well, first and foremost, I mean, he come with a reputation of being the Iceman. I think United only had one real Iceman, and that was Ronnie Johnson. And yeah. Ronnie Johnson Ronnie Johnson now, when he still plays in games, is still very much the Ronnie Johnson he played for Manchester United. Still an incredible player, fitness-wise, and his passion's still there. So, but I don't think you can put those two, in that same boat, because Ronnie Johnson is miles and miles in front of Lindelof, without a shadow of a doubt. In that sense, Ronnie was physical. Ronnie could deal with anybody physically, but he hasn't got the same presence that Ronnie had at all. Lindelof, and maybe Varane might. Varane has played in big games. He plays for one of the, he's plays for France, one of the best international teams in the world, I should say. He's played in Madrid and he's played in big games to Barcelona. And he's won a hell of a lot. But then to come and play in the Premier League, where next season it's going to be very unforgiving next season. I'm so looking forward to next season, where I think every team's going to want to prove a point of what they've endured. The fans are going to demand every player gives 100%. First and foremost, I hope they demand that their own players stop screaming. They don't allow that crap to go on anymore. But I just think it's going to be a very, very competitive Premier League. Last season wasn't really that competitive, nor was the previous season when Liverpool won the league. It wasn't a competitive league at all. This season, I believe, is going to be competitive, and hopefully that he's going to be able to deal with that. And more importantly, that him and if he does arrive at Old Trafford, him and Maguire are going to play lots of games together. Because if they can do that, and that then makes the job easier on the goalkeeper, who that may be for next season, and then as well for fullbacks as well, it makes it so much better. If you get 38 league games and your back four plays together in at least 32 of them together, and I'll tell you what, being Manchester United, you have got a great chance of delivering something.
Yeah, Mike Pieri says there's a dearth of top quality centre backs in the game at the moment. Chiellini and Bonucci were the pick at the Euros as a partnership at their age, and Maguire also stood out. Varane should be an upgrade. Yeah, like we said, should be.
It should be.
See. The thing about the ironic thing is that Ollie was sort of criticised a lot. One of the things that I like to think on our podcast is that we can add humble pie to the menu every single week. We don't mind having a slice of it. With the Lindelof thing, I think neither of us are completely convinced by him. But from the selection that he had, he obviously saw the benefits of that, and he did add some kind of consistency to the back line as well. And a lot of people were calling out for the likes of Mengi and Twanzebe to play, and maybe they've shown, we'll talk about it in a little bit, the friendlies, that maybe he was right not to take that chance. But we'll get to that in a moment. So it wouldn't be the first podcast of a new season without talking about the speculation around Paul Pogba. It's always there every single year. We've talked about him at length. The new rumour is that PSG have come in with the money for him. He's decided that he's not going to sign a new contract. What do you make of all this one? I mean, it's such a complex scenario with Pogba. He's played well at times. They've moved the team around, the formation around, and he's come in and played well in different things. But I think we've both been on the same page with thinking now, is that run of form ever good enough to justify investing for the long term in him, or do we see him better as an asset? Was that form that we saw last season taking him up to this 40 or 50 million price tag? That's the blessing of the form. Do you understand what I'm saying with that? Because obviously that's something that we've talked about many times. So where do you stand on Pogba this summer?
Well, when you talk about humble pie, I've done it so many times with this player. I've gone one wave and I've gone the other. And I think I've got to the stage now. And I think someone mentioned this to me at the weekend, and I just said, I've had enough of talking about him. And all I keep doing is repeating myself, and other people are, oh, well, you said that time, you said that time. I don't think anybody's any different. Because when he does get his head down and play, you think, yep, he makes a difference and he's done some incredible things. But he's done some, yeah, incredible on both sides of it, positives and negatives. Because some of the penalties that he's given away, and the goals he's given away. I think now for United to take a step forward, and which everyone's looking for, I think we have to say is that he's got to move on. There's no point chasing it. Keep overpaying him, and kneeling down and praying to him to stay. I think it really needs to move on for United to have something different in midfield. So I think you get the better of him on the left-hand side. But that bit, if you're going to play him on the left-hand side, it gives the team a better balance for Ole to add what he wants inside of him. Then you're taking away a position which maybe an all right Rashford can do a job, or a Greenwood could do a job, or even a Sancho. You lose somebody, and I just think for United to be that attacking side, which everyone wants to see him get back to, I think we've got to let him move on. If he's got a year to go, get something back. You're never going to get it all back. That's impossible. Get something back, accept it, and that's it. And let him move on, and let him go and have a great time. If that's true about PSG, let him go and have a great time, and let the negative people, come out and say what they want to say. Look what he's doing for PSG, because we've seen already during this Euros that Paul Pogba, who plays for his country, is so well and so consistently. It's not the Paul Parker who plays for Paul Parker, the Paul Pogba,
Yeah.
the Paul Pogba who plays for Manchester United. You don't get 2-3 games on the bounce. What he gives for France, looking at Manchester United, it doesn't work that way. So you got, at the end of the day, I think he seems to be happy to let his agent speak on his behalf. He doesn't want to talk about himself. So that says it for me, really. If he's not willing to speak his own mind and talk about how much he loves being at Manchester United, let him move on. Let him go back to France, go home, and go and play for the team with the most money in France. Go and play for them. I'm not going to say the biggest club in France, because as far as I'm concerned, the biggest club in France is Marseille. So if he really want to test himself, go and play for Marseille and revitalise them and let them compete against PSG. So it'd be a real football club up against a new football club, and see how that works out. But go to PSG, go where the money is, and then there you are, and then work on from there.
Yeah, it's a little bit like Di Maria, isn't it? Like Di Maria left United, went to Paris, and I'm sure there were plenty of highlight clips where you'd say, "Oh, look, United have lost out there," but really, we haven't. I mean, Di Maria has just gone and enjoyed the money for the rest of his career. I'm not criticising him for doing that. And by the way, I'm not getting on his back for what he did at United either, because it was clearly incompatible between him and Van Gaal. But it is sort of similar to that in that the player doesn't want to be here. There's an opportunity for him to go and do something in France, which, like we've said, it's artificial in a certain way. Playing with Paris, winning trophies, do what you need to do. And as we've talked about many times over the last year or so, the added bonus to losing, the bonus for Pogba going for United is that Raiola won't be connected with a club. and we can do without that speculation. It always seemed to come around whenever Pogba was in or out of the team, when he was on his way out of the team or coming back into the team, there'd be some speculation about his future. Whenever there was a big game, there'd be speculation about Paul Pogba. There's only been, I can think of a couple of players in United history that have been indulged to this extent, and George Best, Eric Cantona, and Cristiano Ronaldo are probably the three, and they at least had the hard work and the talent and the achievements to show for it. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, and I'm not putting this all on Pogba, there's the management again. Mourinho, obviously, that was a weird signing for a player, for a manager like Mourinho, and the systems have never been right. I'll acknowledge that, as much as I think that Fernandes coming in has probably shown that up a little bit, because Fernandes elevated a team, and you would think that a player of Pogba's quality should do that as well. But, that is what it is. I think it's probably, like you've said, one of those that's a move that's right for all parties. And do you know what I think the really interesting thing, Paul, is that you don't necessarily lose Pogba and think we need a Paul Pogba replacement. I'm not saying that we don't need a new midfielder, but you're not. I might even get pelters for this, but we don't necessarily need a replacement for Paul Pogba. We get in an Oldham midfielder. Then let's say that, for example, the Pogba transfer allows us to get the Varane transfer over the line, that bring the missing millions in there, and then go and get a player like Bissouma or Camavinga from France, the player that Solskjaer seems to want, on top of Varane and Sancho. I'd say that that's a really good summer, even taking into account that we lost Pogba. If he can enable us, it's like, let's say, for example, he wants Trippier as well. You know what I mean? Trippier seems to be a player that Solskjaer wants to bring that quality to the right-hand side. And we saw last summer they had the boost on Luke Shaw to bring in a player. So what I'm trying to say is, if the Pogba transfer facilitates 3 or 4 smaller moves, then it'd be very good business for United, won't it?
It will be, and the only when you look at what Manchester United are all about at this moment in time, the only loss that Pogba would be to the loss to the marketing department.
Yeah.
That's all. That's the biggest loss he'll be. If you want headlines and that, and selling shirts and everything that goes with him, and you push him out there in front of prospective people who want to become partners of the football club, then Paul Pogba is going to be a miss on that side. But to be perfectly honest, it's about somebody. Is he going to somebody who's going to be missed on the football pitch? And you think, so is he going to be everything that he's done over the years he's been there? Is he going to be a big miss over a season on the football pitch? And that's the most important thing for me, is what he does on the pitch, because that's the bit that sells you off the pitch. And he's not doing that. And you mentioned George Best, you mentioned Eric, and you mentioned Cristiano. Those players come in virtually, for nothing. Eric coming for £1 million. Cristiano, I couldn't tell you the figure, but it was peanuts. George come through the club. Yeah. And also they're going to spend millions and millions on somebody. And you think to yourself, and he's getting all these headlines, and yet he hasn't achieved anything anywhere near what those players done. So you have to sometimes just go, no, it hasn't. It's been great having you come back for a second spell. It hasn't worked out in that way. Got to move on. The team has to come first, and you want the quality on the park, not in the club shop selling jerseys.
Yeah, and like I said as well, and you talked about him playing on the left and everything like that, and that we've already got players who can do that. Probably more effective for the Ole style, because he wants rapid movement down the sides. There's just a different shape to the team now when you move on, and Pogba wouldn't fit. There's no point in trying to make him fit. Let him go with the best wishes, and you don't necessarily have to replace him. You just get players of different qualities in the middle, the players that Pogba doesn't have but we need, and then you move on and see how that helps the players that we've got. Well, obviously transfers are going to be something that we come back to a lot over the next few weeks. Those are the changes. Let's talk about the stability. Like Michael asked earlier, Ole's new contract was announced on Saturday morning. A 3-year contract with the option for an extra year. He's earned it, hasn't he, Paul? Really, I can't think there's any question about. People talk about the Europa League final, and yes, we talked about this on the last podcast, and we said you could question what he did in the final, but at the end of the day, you don't judge what he's done over 3 years over a final, or even the fact that we lost on penalty kicks. Because if we won on penalty kicks, everyone would now be saying, "No, we won the Europa League last season." I don't think you define him on that as much as you can criticise him for what happened in there. You look at the last 3 years, 2.5 years. He's definitely been at United longer than any manager post Fergie, and I think we can see the health of the club is much better than it's been at any point since then. Well, you might disagree, but what do you think?
I just thought, yeah, it just gives a little bit of security to him, of course. I think the club as well. I think it holds everything together because if his contract was allowed just to run down, or United weren't to offer him another contract, then it's just another point of putting Manchester United in the news and not giving him a contract. It starts speculation. It allows people just to jump on the bandwagon and talk about the negatives. Sorry, what they deem as positives about him not getting a new contract. Yes, there's people out there who are again being negative because he's been given one. They want to talk about who United should have as manager, and what you should have isn't always what you can have, or maybe what is needed at this moment in time at Manchester United. And there's no guarantees out there. If you're looking for guarantees, Manchester United and a lot of people who I don't know if they're supporters or not believed that all of a sudden, because Mourinho was coming to Manchester United, it was just going to happen. They just thought, oh, you just turn up, it's going to happen. And it doesn't work that way. It doesn't matter what club you are. He had that spell at Chelsea, and that was an incredible spell at Chelsea, what he done. And everyone knows what happened the second time around. Everyone knows what happened at Old Trafford when he turned up there. And, and there was a rap song, wasn't there? Don't believe the hype. And that's what it was in the end. It was a hype. He sold himself that way. He kept telling people what he'd won before. Sir Alex Ferguson doesn't tell anybody what he's won before because everyone knows what he's won. They're the ones who want to talk about it. He doesn't talk about it. Mourinho's complete opposite. He just left. He left a terrible taste. He left a terrible smell around that football club, which had to be dealt with. Ollie's come in, sprayed it all down, got it all sorted, got people back on track, started communicating with people off the pitch, which he never done because he felt that wasn't his job. When it is your job at Manchester United, because as big as Manchester United are, they're still a community, and I think that Ollie's got that bit right. There's still things to do on the pitch, of course, because you're Manchester United and you're expected to be challenging for every single thing that's made available, and that's what he knows he has to do. But he hasn't had the best squad. He's got an opportunity this time to go and add to what he's got already. Maybe still got to let quite a few go. There's still a lot of them sitting there who you really don't want around anymore. There's too much money being wasted over the years, giving people new contracts. When you think to yourself, why are you doing that for? People say, oh, it's to sell them on and get more money. People have got to still want them to sell them on. And there's a lot of players there, and I won't name them or anything because everyone else can name them. Get in their mind, they'll get somebody and think you can move on. First and foremost, there's too many centre halves at Old Trafford. You don't need them all. There's not enough of them. There's too many of them for all the teams, and there'll still be some sitting around if all the teams are playing on a Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock. So they have to move people on. Deadwood, they were called in my day, DWs. That's what they were called. So you need to move them on just to change it a little bit with new faces and add a little bit of life. That when new players come in, they look around them and they'll say, Corey, they look at them and go, he's fresh, wow, wow. But then when you see the likes of some of the others sitting down below them, they're kind of going, ooh, and you don't really want to go near them because you know they're not going to be the right people to be around.
The clubs have also given a contract. I'm sure that one matter doesn't really feature in what you just said about the Deadwood, because obviously the contract that was given to him was you're going to play as marginally as you did last year. There's no guarantee you're going to play more football. Maybe a little bit more, but the obvious migration into ambassadorial or coaching role at the end of that. And then, they brought back Tom Heaton to sort of be that backup goalkeeper. And Paul McShane's just signed this contract to be he's like a youth coach, but he's going to play in the under-23s to sort of put that on field coaching to experience. So a bit of innovation there. What I'm trying to say is there's obvious benefits to the continuity that Ole sees like those players are obviously known to Ole from when he was there before as a player, when he was working with the reserves and getting his badges when he was coming back through from his last injury. So as well, I completely agree with you in terms of the Deadwood, and the squad has got a lot of that. I do also like that he's trying to sort of, not just because they were connected to the club once, but partly because of that, the fact that he's going back to that kind of thing and trying to see that kind of continuity, and the fact that like these guys are nice guys, you know what I mean? Tom Eaton, by all accounts, is a lovely guy. Paul McShane's a lovely guy. Juan Mata, obviously, everybody talks about him as the nicest man in football, next to you, of course, Paul. But Juan a close second. So some good continuity there. But those are the kind of things. Obviously, we always say probably better to discuss with hindsight at a later point. But talking about people overreacting as they were doing to these kind of like, why are you bringing Tom Eaton back, and why are we bringing Paul McShane back? Why don't we concentrate on giving Paul Pogba a new contract and all that sort of stuff? And why are you giving Ole a new contract? Similar overreactions to what happened on Saturday at QPR. Talk through that. I mean, a funny game, really, because United had a few chances, a crazy spell of defending. Talked earlier about that clamour to have Mengi and Twanzebe, and they had a bit of a bizarre spell for sort of 10, 15 minutes. And people really overreacting to it. Oh, you've given him a new contract, and then we've gone and lost 4-2 at QPR. You were there. What did you make of it?
It was a strange one, because I just went along there just to watch a game, and I got told. I rang up QPR regarding somebody who I know at QPR regarding something else, to ask a favour for something else, and turned around and said to me, "I suppose you're ringing about the game." And my thing was, "What game?" Well, United. I didn't know. I didn't have a clue. It must have been said before, and the way I think life has gone, I completely forgot. I forgot that we was in July, and there's a pre-season. Remember last year, July, football season restarted.
Yeah.
So it was a strange one, but I was, be honest, when people talk to me, people come up after the game when I was, walking back to the station, and there was a lot of United fans there, and everybody. I looked at that and just talked about how well QPR played. People go, "Oh, but United only had this, only had that." But it wasn't about, it's the way that QPR played, how their players stood up to a lot of those under 23 players as such, or who were there, and they were better. They were better than them on that occasion. So that'd be a concern for Ollie, that he never got enough from those kind of players. They were outplayed. They were better from the back, playing out from the back. And midfield players had more life in them. When you think about United, a Pereira in midfield, who looked like the Pereira who you sent out on loan and you wish hadn't come back off loan. He just wasn't there. Lingard scored, and that was it. There wasn't enough there. So QPR won the game. They deserved to win it. Could have been more. But they were better. When you look at United, there wasn't really a great show. And when they scored that first goal, I thought, here we go. It's going to be 2, 3s, 4s. But QPR come back and were better. Once they equalised, they were a better team by a country mile in that first half. And then there was a lot of substitutions in the early to the middle of the second half. And QPR was still better. Then at the end, QPR made a lot of changes. And that's when United come back into it. And then it could have been 4-4.
Yeah.
Could have been 4-4 in the end. And so that was my outlook on the game, really. But it was just an enjoyable game. I was just pleased at the way QPR looked. QPR looking like a side that could come up this season. Nothing would please me more for them to be back in the Premier League and within the manner they're doing it, because they're not spending a lot of money. Mark Warburton is just going out and bringing in some good players. There's so many good players there. One, a couple of subs who come on and didn't know their name because even the team, they weren't even on the team sheet. So God knows what he's gone out and done. But United fans shouldn't really be. United fans should be more concerned. The biggest concern is there's players there who have had a look in with the first team, but they weren't doing themselves justice. There's players who aren't playing because of the Euros, so they should be taking this moment to be out, work, to trying to prove points, and they haven't done that. They just haven't. I thought Mason Greenwood, while he was on that pitch, was excellent. He played in a centre forward position. Even the QPR fans around me were just talking about him. They saw somebody, the biggest name they had there on the park when he started. The lesson, one of the matter was that obviously a big name, but he was on the side. But Mason Greenwood lived up to everything people were expecting to see. His movement in that central role, which I wonder if Ollie's looking at, maybe look at him in there, and then that means that he can service Rashford and Sancho in wide positions, and maybe Mason swapping with Cavani. That could be something. But he was absolutely excellent. And if he hadn't been any different and going a little bit through the motions, I would have thought, well, he's looking around him and he isn't seeing the people he normally plays with. But his attitude was really good in that first half.
Yeah, a bit difficult for. Well, I mean, first of all, yeah, you're right that you want to be seeing more from some players. You want to be seeing that kind of reaction. Say, I want to be United, even in friendly games. But the difficulty is that it's difficult to get that kind of motivation from players when most of them, at least 6 or 7 of them, are going on loan. Do you know what I mean? It's such a weird dynamic for United at the moment that those players are probably just waiting for confirmation of that. Do you know what I mean? Rather than we're going to be around the first team squad, we're just waiting for all the internationals to come back.
Yeah, but there was playing in front of 11,000 people, 12,000 people. And after what they've been through, every player, everyone's been the same. That should be a lift already because it's the first time I've been to an away game with United playing, and United hadn't sold out. They hadn't sold out. I was surprised surprised that away fans were being let in. I didn't even know there was allowing that. And then when I looked at the away end, which is the school end they called it, it was what, 3/4. And I've been to QPR when United have been there, and you know what that's like. It's not the biggest away end, but you know that once you get all the United fans in there, the noise that comes from there is incredible. But it was a really good atmosphere. So I expected players just to be on the high because they're playing in front of the fans. And yes, they might be going somewhere else, but they've got to remember the people who are sitting up watching that game. Because there was a lot of people there, so a lot of faces there at that game at Loftus Road, watching that game. So those players, some of them might have just killed something that could have been better for them just by that kind of performance that they put out.
Yeah, so one of those sayings, isn't it? You're not going to kill a career by not doing well in pre-season, but if you do well in pre-season, then it could have a big impact on your chances of getting into the team. And there's still some of those decisions to send those players out aren't permanent. They're not rubber stamped, so a player could work their way into plans. But that's the nature of pre-season. No, there's going to be no overreaction to the defeat on this podcast, at least. For future friendlies, we've got Brentford on Wednesday, I think, and then Saturday we're at Preston. But we'll be back next week to talk about those games and see if there's any more transfers coming in. But yeah, that's it for this week, guys. Hope you enjoyed the first sort of foray into this YouTube element of doing podcasts. It's new for us. We don't really know what we're doing, winging it. Well, I don't know what I'm doing. Paul's an old pro at talking on camera. I'm sort of
less of the old.
Yeah, a seasoned professional, experienced veteran, experienced legendary former United player. There we go. I've got myself out. Like and subscribe to the channel. Check out talkofthedevils.co.uk for more content. We'll be back next week, and Phil Marsh will be back on Friday's show. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Even there we go. Still learning.